Hey, David, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Hey, super good. Thanks for being a part of the show. Everybody, you
Looking
got
forward to it.
check out Nothing Personal with David Samson. What I like about it is that because you were, president of an organization for so long, which would be the Marlins. Like you actually understand a lot of the things, even the idiosyncrasies that are happening with management, with ownership, and you're also not part of that anymore, so you can say whatever you feel. Like that's got to be just so refreshing to be able to do, right?
It's liberating.
Yeah.
It's like the minute I got the text alert that I had been fired by Derek Jeter, and that's a true story. That's how I lost my job, was a text alert from ESPN.com. But as soon as that happened, I just felt unshackled. I immediately got into the media world because I wanted to get paid for talking. And most people won't actually tell you the truth about what's happening because they want to get back in the game to the extent they've ever been in the game or know what's going on. And our industry is full of people who don't actually know what goes on just because they've never done it. So
Yeah.
it'd be the equivalent of me trying to say what it is to, be a rock star. I can't do that, but I can certainly get people in the room. And it's been a great niche, and I've had a great time with this new chapter at Nothing Personal.
So you guys check it out, Nothing Personal with David Sampson. I do want to address what you just said there with Jeter, because weren't you the chief negotiator in that when they're selling the team and you're the one managing that? Do you know as you're negotiating it, you're probably going to get fired by the guy you're working with to sell the team too?
Oh, it was amazing. I negotiated myself out of a job, and that doesn't happen every day. But I knew what I was doing. I had a job to do for our owner. He came into my office and said, sell the team. And I said, let me do it. We don't need to hire bankers. You don't need to spend 40 or $50 million as a fee. I can do it. And it's easy because I had so much leverage because I knew Jeter wanted a team so badly. And he spent the whole sales process trying to convince me that he wanted me to stay on. So we went to the Soho house and we went to his house in Tampa. And he let me meet Hannah as though that would make a difference, as though I would choose him to be the new owner because I thought I would be saving my job. And I knew inside that A, he wasn't going to keep me, and B, I didn't really care. I just wanted the highest price. But I let him think that he was doing a great job. Like I would say, hey, I'm really excited about working with you going forward. It's going to be great. And he said, oh, yeah, we're going to get a lot of good things done. Meanwhile, inside, I just said, hey, just go up by another $100 million so we can keep talking.
And so when you were kind of playing him in a different way than I guess anybody else that was trying to get the team, because you knew just how desperately Mr. Baseball wanted a baseball team. And so you use that to your advantage?
Well, especially because it really wasn't his money. It's way easier to play people when they're using other people's money. So he had the ear of Bruce Sherman, who is now the controlling owner, was always the controlling owner. And Bruce Sherman basically genuflected in his general direction. Derek, whatever you want, I just want to be near you. I want to be around you. And meanwhile, Derek was negotiating, but every time he went up in price, he knew it wasn't his money because he actually signed an employment deal that paid him back for his initial investment in the team. So it really was a great deal from Derek's standpoint right up until he got canned himself. But at the end of the day, knowing that he and A-Rod don't get along and that A-Rod wanted to be an owner of a team, knowing there were other bidders, including the current owner of Inter Miami, a man named George Moss, you just get a lot of groups together, and you really don't need to be a genius to get people to overpay.
The ownership thing is interesting to me, and we have no idea what that is. Obviously, you do, but all the little things that happen behind the scenes. And what I think about now is what the Ravens are going through with Lamar Jackson, in that, okay, here's a guy who says he wants this money, and they say, we've offered you, whatever the rumors are, $130 million guaranteed. You hear different stories, and he's like, I don't need it all guaranteed, but you have the Deshaun Watson deal. You have all these factors, and all I'm thinking about is if it's guaranteed money, and you can answer this better than anybody I've ever talked to. If it's guaranteed money, does the owner have to put that away like in an escrow if he guarantees the money in a contract, so if he goes bankrupt, the player still gets paid?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, players are some of the least secured creditors in case of bankruptcy of all time because they line up behind the actual debt holders. Now, there is a rule in baseball that when you defer salaries, you know how Bobby Bonilla gets paid like $1 million every year until he's 120? The rule is supposed to be that when you defer money to a player that you have to put that into a segregated account, but no teams follow it. MLB doesn't actually enforce that rule. And so the players at the end of the day, if they agree to deferrals, they're just assuming that the team will be a going concern. And nobody's gotten screwed so far. So I feel like that's a good bet. And deferred money used to be a very smart thing for teams to do because they would pay the player zero interest and they'd invest that money and make Madoff-like interest. But these days, that doesn't happen as much.
So when they guarantee money, they're not guaranteeing they'll still have money 7 years down the road when they've guaranteed. I didn't know the answer to that. I'm surprised that there isn't some rule in place so a bunch of people don't get screwed eventually.
I'm just trying to remember from all the contracts I did. I don't think I ever did a deal where the player guaranteed me that he'd still be good at the end of the contract.
Well, but you're not paying him to stay good, just to stay on the team, though, right?
No, I'm paying him to be good, better. I want him to be good. I don't want to make a bad signing yet again. I don't want to be criticized for it. I'm hoping that the player we sign keeps getting better as they get paid more. It just doesn't work out that way a lot.
What's the hardest thing about being a president of an organization? Like one of the least glamorous things, because all I hear is you get tickets up front and all the hot dogs you can eat.
Do you know that in 18 years in Major League Baseball, I did not have one hot dog at the ballpark?
I did not know that. And why? Was that a purposeful decision because you weren't eating hot dogs?
No, I like where your head's at, but no. It's the same reason why in college I lived above a Taco Bell, and I made a deal with myself that I would never go into the Taco Bell. Because my feeling is if you go in once at the end of a long night, you might as well just bank it that you're going to go in every night. And so I figured if I had a hot dog at a game, I go to games every day. I just figured that I'd be eating hundreds and hundreds of hot dogs, so I chose to stay at zero. Instead, I became addicted to pumpkin seeds.
Yeah.
Now, what was your question?
Well, no, I live a similar life where I can't keep sugar in the house because I know what I'm good and what I'm not good at. And for you to never go, I'm not going to do it because then the floodgates are open. I may have them all the time. But that's
what's not glamorous about being a team president that people don't realize is that it's running a business, and you don't sit around in the clubhouse and talk to players. You don't shag fly balls. You are worrying about profits and losses, and you've got HR issues and finance issues and sales and marketing, PR, all of those things, not many of which are glamorous. But the most important thing that people don't focus on is that I have not come across another job where everybody thinks that they're better at it than you are, and that they comment on everything you do, and they think that everything you do is wrong. It's sort of like when you're a lawyer, somebody like sitting in your office saying, oh my God, that's the worst motion ever, or that's the worst argument ever. It doesn't really happen that way, but in baseball front offices and all sports, it does.
Almost feels like a referee, where you guys can get a little credit if you win the World Series. Otherwise, you did something wrong. Because even if you got to the World Series and didn't win, it could be, well, we didn't have a good third baseman, or we did. But a referee never gets credit. Even if they do the best job, you just don't even know they were there. That almost feels like an executive with a Major League Baseball team, except all the free hot dogs.
Except all the free hot dogs. But listen, you go for this, right? This is the World Series ring, and that's what you attempt to do. But the truth is, the day after you get the ring, everybody is saying, all right, now what? What's next? Like a total Josiah Bartlett type of thing. What are we doing now? What have you done for me lately? So there really is no resting on your laurels, and there's no such thing as an off season. You are constantly working to get better, but what's the goal? If the goal is to win the World Series, but then you just have to defend it and repeat it, where does it ever end? When do you get off the roller coaster? I guess you get off when you get fired.
Yeah, or die. When the coaster just stops, I guess.
You get thrown off.
Yes. I had tweeted this weekend that I think the two best rules are in professional sports or major sports in our country in the past 25 years. One is the college football playoff, and then two is the pitch clock. I think it is. We've only had it for spring training, and now a week and a half or however long we are into the season. It's amazing. It makes watching games so much more enjoyable, not just because a game will now end in 2 hours and 30 minutes or less, but even watching the game. Even if you only have 20 minutes to be there to watch the game, you're just seeing so much more action because of the pitch clock. Now, I say all that. What are your thoughts on the pitch clock? And you can totally contradict me if you like, obviously.
Well, I appreciate that. And I guess I would say this. this is totally anecdotal what you're saying right now. It's a feeling you have that it seems like there's more action, or it seems like the games are faster and the average game time is going down. It's only been 4 or 5 games, so we don't know for sure what the final result will be, but it feels right. And I think that's what you're referring to, is the feeling of more action. I love the fact that games are starting earlier. That's why it feels like they're not going so late in the night. Weekday games are starting at 6:40 in many markets instead of 7:10 or 7:07, and then you combine that with the shorter game time. But I think the really important issue that baseball has to confront is the payroll disparity, and the fact that the Mets can go into a season with $380 million and the A's can go into a season at $33 million, because I think that helping around the edges like these rule changes is important, but making sure that all markets have at least a hope at one point in time to compete, I think that's going to be the biggest issue that baseball has to overcome in order to build its fan base.
2 things. One, upon your comment there, even if the games do run longer, it seems like their games are like 13-11. And I'm okay with a longer game if there are more runs being scored. And listen, I'm a massive baseball fan. And even I'm starting to go, are we serious? We're going to what? This It's almost like when Giannis shoots free throws sometimes, these guys that are pitching. It just takes for freaking ever for a pitch. So even if the games aren't sped up, that means so far, you're right, way more action. And that I love, because baseball just needs more action, period, however you get it. I think that's why the young kids aren't playing it as much, because it's not fun to watch. And if it's not fun to watch, how do you even get into it to begin with? The second thing that you said, the money. So the NFL, they have a minimum they have to pay. The owners have to put in. Does baseball have a minimum, or could the Oakland A's just do $5 million and they got a bunch of scrubs from the softball league?
Well, the minimum is, let's say, $700,000 times 26 players.
So league minimum?
That's the league minimum
Yeah.
for salary for a year is $720,000 in that range. There's no maximum. There's no salary cap. There's no salary floor. And keep in mind the difference between football and baseball. Football shares the lion's share of their revenue, right? The national broadcast revenue, that is shared equally amongst the 32 teams. In baseball, local TV revenue is such a huge component. Local gate revenue is such a huge component, and the haves just have way more than the have-nots, and they're not sharing enough revenue, and that's something baseball is going to have to deal with.
Actually, it's not easy, but what's the easy fix that you would implement if you went in and you were the commissioner?
So the first thing I would do is ignore what everyone's basis is, because the argument that big market teams make is that they spent more to buy their team, therefore they have a right to have more revenue and keep more revenue. So the first thing I would do is ignore what their purchase price was, and I would institute far more revenue sharing. Right now, the rules are put in place so that it's like the IRS tax code. Teams spend millions of dollars trying to avoid paying tens of millions of dollars into revenue sharing. There is arbitration, there are fights and arguments all about teams trying to hide revenue. The first thing I would do is collect all baseball and baseball-related and baseball ancillary revenue, put it in a pot, and share it to a far greater extent than it's being shared now.
Yeah, I just thought he'd say something like charge $1 for tickets. That was pretty detailed there. And again, that's why we have you here, because you can lead us into some things that we don't even know to even consider. And I think about teams being sold now, and the Commanders they're supposedly being sold. We have bidders. You have Magic Johnson's group. Dan Snyder's always kind of odd anyway. I don't know if he's your friend or not. But, what can you tell us about what's happening, maybe not even with that team specifically, but when they're trying to sell the Commanders and multiple people are bidding, what's going on in that office there?
Well, there's several issues. When someone's buying a sports team, don't look at it like you're buying a company that's traded on the stock exchange. It's not a revenue multiple. It's not an EBITDA multiple. What makes sports teams worth what they're worth is something that I call the ego premium. The ego premium is what someone will pay to feel important, what someone will pay to get to go to a party and say, I own a baseball team, what somebody will pay, as Steve Ballmer in LA said, I founded or helped co-founder of Microsoft, I can't get a dinner reservation. Now I own the Clippers. I can do whatever I want whenever I want to. And he wrote the check out of his checking account for the $2+ billion. So owners decide they want to get into it, ego premium. Now, when you've got multiple bidders, Daniel Snyder's in a position where he gets to decide on behalf of him and his partners what he wants to get for the team. And you can hold out for that price, except if you're Daniel Snyder. Because what's being held over his head is that if he doesn't get this team sold before next season, there is a real likelihood that 24 owners will vote and force him to sell and take over the sales process. The NFL doesn't want that. The other owners don't want it, and Snyder certainly doesn't want it. So it's in his best interest to choose one of these groups and get the team sold, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Do you think there'll be an MLB team back in Montreal?
No.
Do you think there'll be an MLB team in Nashville?
Better chance, but no.
Is Vegas first?
Vegas should have been first a long time ago, and Vegas is going to get one. It's funny. Baseball would not expand into Vegas. I went personally to Vegas and met with the Mayor Oscar Goldman, trying to move the team in Florida to Las Vegas when we couldn't get a deal done in Florida. And there were showgirls around, and there was pomp and circumstance. We had a great idea for a new stadium, but we did not have the support of Bud Selig because of his relationship with Bart Giamatti, the old commissioner who suspended Pete Rose over gambling, and that's why Pete Rose is still suspended, by the way, incidentally. But baseball was not embracing gambling. And guess what? Hockey got there first. Now football's there. So baseball's now third. LeBron wants a team there. So there could be 4, but it's time for baseball to hurry up. And even though they're late, they should get there. But the reason you're not seeing teams relocate to Vegas, even though there's a rumor that the A's will, is Vegas is being held out as an expansion city. Because in the case of expansion, there's something called an expansion fee in the billions, and that gets split by all 30 current owners, and they get to pocket it or use it for payroll or whatever they want, but it's a huge help to their bottom line. So you want to save as many cities as possible. I'm sorry, but that's why Montreal is still going to be considered, because it helps with competition.
All right, final thing here. I just want to brag on you for a second and then ask a question. So, Eddie, I'm going to read you some stuff about David here. Okay. He was named one of Sports Business Journal's 40 under 40 for 2 years in a row.
Wow.
Back in 2003, 2004. We talked about him being chief negotiator for the sale of the Marlins. He was the first active major team president to complete an Ironman in 2006. He ran 52 miles from Pompano Beach to Marlins Park to raise $600,000 for a charity.
Dang.
I'm going to keep going. Now, I got a point with all this.
Okay.
I just want you to hear it. He completed the World Marathon Challenge, running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 consecutive days.
Woo!
So he's Forrest Gump, right? He's Forrest Gump of, sports and business. But then I get to this, and I'd just like for you to comment on this, David. You were kicked off Survivor really quick. I need to know what happened there, because you got everything else. You got you got to buy the tail except for Survivor.
Let's just say that when they dress you like Thurston Howell from Gilligan's Island, and you've got a blazer on and an ascot as your buff, and then the name of your tribe is the Brains Tribe, and then you're elected the leader of the Brains Tribe, I would say there's a solid chance you're not going to win. And my view was, from a cost-benefit analysis, I'm not going to sit on an island for 39 days not to win $1 million. So if you're going to lose, second place is the same as 18th place. I'd rather get out after 3 days and have a cheeseburger and a beer.
Did you get to hang out in the hotel? Did they make you hang out in the hotel the whole time?
So you're there pregame and you're there postgame. And I was running a team at the time. That was filmed in the summer of 2013, in the middle of my only 100-loss season, I believe, in my career. And I had to get back to the business of running a team. My staff, when I was gone to film Survivor, not allowed to tell them I was doing it, they actually, and what does this say about me? They thought I was in rehab.
That's funny.
True.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, look, we're big fans. Thank you for your time. I want everybody that's listening now, if you love sports, if you love like an entertaining sports business, meaning you get to know like the real stuff happening behind the scenes on a lot of this, but not in a way that is so granular you don't understand, you're going to like Nothing Personal with David Samson. David, we really appreciate the time, and thank you for spending a few minutes with us here. We hope you have a great week, man.
Hey, you too. Have a great day.
Thanks, David.